out more. And I also want you to take your browser over to supertalktv.com. You'll see I'm not alone in the studio today. Joining us is Dr. David Buys. He's the state health specialist with Mississippi State University Extension. He's also an associate professor and many, many other hats I'm sure you wear there on campus. But you guys have been working on a great project to bring light to maybe mental health around farm and farmers, or maybe not the farm, but farmers. And I thought this is a unique perspective. Number one, that to know that the extension is also looking into not only the health of farming and communities, but also the health of our farmers. And I feel like it's a different twist. We haven't sort of heard about this yet. So welcome. Say that first. Said a lot and then that. Good to have you here. How did this come about? You mentioned you guys have been working on this for a while.
Yeah. So if you want the sort of thumbnail sketch of the history, it started back in 2017. We got some grant dollars to start looking at the opioid crisis, and particularly in rural Mississippi. And that, so it's interesting that we're in the same building as Farm Bureau, and I have to give a shout out to the American Farm Bureau Federation for a report that they released, I think in the early part of 2018, that showed that farmers were more affected by the opioid crisis than the general population. About 3 out of 4 farmers reported being affected by the opioid crisis. So that was the impetus for us to start digging deeper and seeing what's driving this. Why are farmers so uniquely affected by this crisis?
And is that nationwide, or is that also right here in Mississippi?
That was based on a national sample. That data was based on a national sample, but we've replicated that, and we show that it's very similar. Those numbers are very similar here, specifically in Mississippi. And it doesn't mean that 3 out of 4 farmers are addicted to opioids, but that their labor might struggle with addiction, or a family member that it's touched them in some way. There's a lot of stress around the agriculture industry that we don't talk enough about, and that's what this project is all about: is raising awareness of that stress and those challenges that farmers face, and then also helping to just not just shed light on it, but move to conversation about what can we do about it.
I was reading through some of the stuff of the mini docuseries that you guys have put out, which we'll get to. One quote that stood out from one of the farmers was the fact that he just didn't have the courage to ask for help, or that he felt like he was the only one. And when you think about your stereotypical, yes, it's painting with the broad brush, farmer, I mean, they're very hardworking, self-reliant for the most part, and prideful in the best way, in terms of don't necessarily always ask for help. They always figure out how to do it on their own. They take care of themselves. They take care of their farm. And so it is a little bit harder for their type of personalities to raise their hand with something like stress, anxiety, or maybe other, mental concerns.
That's absolutely right. And that's what we're finding the more research we do in this space. Our sort of stereotypes and the personas that we believe farmers to have, it absolutely holds true as we dig deeper and more sophisticated research sorts of ways. That holds up. What we're also recognizing is that there's all this sort of outside pressure. If farmers have had land in their family for multiple generations, there's this deep pressure to hold on to that and to not be the one to lose that land. That, coupled with the fact that farming it drives those that are in the field to literally be alone for hours and hours and hours at a time. So many outside pressures that are outside of the individual's sort of locus of control, as we like to say, that can drive them to self-medicate or just really have struggles.
So I love this. So we're just at least shining a light on it. There's a chance that if you're listening to Good Things, you are either in a farm family or you may be a farmer of yourself. And hopefully today's conversation will just encourage you to open your mind to it, or check on your neighbors.
That's right.
I know it's weird to come out, hey, you got an opioid problem. Like, that's not probably the way it would go down, but just being mindful of it. Right. And that, even though they put on a tough exterior, doesn't mean that they're not still human on the other side. Talking about the land, Nathan, I think is one of the farmers you guys worked with. The land that he farms has been in his family since the early, 1900s. And so it's more than a workplace for him. And so that is a lot of pressure when you think, I can't be the generation that this, that it goes under. Because everything at least in agriculture is changing, and it's not always for the better.
It is, and it's almost to be successful now, there's this perception at least that you've got to be big. Because the cost of equipment is just outrageous in just all the input cost. You've got to have that economies of scale to be big. Nathan and some of the other farmers featured demonstrate that it's possible to, maintain a sort of a modest, moderate-sized farm and stay active. It just takes some creativity.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about how MSU decided, you know what, let's do a mini docuseries of all the ways that you could have helped. Why did y'all find sharing their story with everyone being a good way to go?
So we have a fantastic TV center at the university, the Mississippi University TV Center, I believe is what it's called. They have started a film sort of segment of their operation. David Garraway operates the center. James Parker is one of their documentary producers. So films.msstate.edu is where you can find many other pieces. They are actually right now at the James Beard Award ceremony, learning if they were nominees along with 2 Netflix pieces for food documentaries. So their quality is very, very just top quality work. And so as I worked with David on actually a couple of those pieces that have been nominated now for James Beard Awards, I began to think about how can we use this as a vehicle for addressing challenges that we're dealing with in our work. And so it was over a conversation at lunch, frankly, that we just decided, let's do this. We had some grant money that we were able to retool. We worked with our project officer out of D.C. and said, can we, kind of shake things up a little bit, move things around and fund this? And they said, yeah, we don't know that that's been done before. Let's give it a shot. So we did. And as folks that watch the films will say, I think everybody would agree the quality of production is just world class, and we're excited about having them out.
Was it hard to find farmers that were willing to talk?
It's not easy. It's not, and we leveraged our relationships. Nathan Casburn, who you mentioned, is a part of the Stand Up Mississippi campaign that the Department of Mental Health has orchestrated. They were they are actively great partners of ours and helped us gain access to him. Farm Bureau here helped us identify a couple of farmers, and then we leveraged our extension agents who know farmers all around the state in identifying some. So we just had to work our relationships, and everything comes back to relationships and trust.
Well, and then obviously once it gets out and we all are encouraged to watch it and sort of understand it, then you hope that more will sort of step out of the shadows, whatever that looks like. Not everybody's going to make a post on Facebook
right.
and declare it. I don't think that's necessarily true. Sometimes just knowing that you're not alone is all that someone needs to start to break down those barriers or to recognize. And that's a good thing. Okay, how long did it take y'all to shoot these documentaries?
Oh my goodness, we've been working on these. COVID, right? Do I need to say anything else?
COVID. COVID ruins everything.
Yeah. So it's taken us a lot longer than it would have had it not been for COVID. We've been working on this for a little over 18 months.
And how many documentaries are there?
So there's 4 in this series. They're about 12 minutes each. And then we wrap up with a word of encouragement from Commissioner of Agriculture, Andy Gibson, to stay the course, get that just emphasizing that the stories you heard are real and that these are challenges that we need to be mindful of in Mississippi. So they've been sort of put together for airing on MPB. They premiered on Monday night, and then aired again yesterday. They air again on MPB on June 19th at 1. But the good news is you can stream them on demand at our website, onthefarm.life.
Is it each a different farmer story, or is it more of like a series of an episode where it's all intertwined?
No, so they are intended to be standalone documentaries. They're consecutive, 12 minutes each. We did it that way. Frankly, production in that form is a little simpler. But also practically, we'll be able to pull those out. We are already pulling those out and showing, we show one at a time and then facilitate a discussion. We've worked. I don't want to jump ahead in your question list, but I'll tell you we've worked with a discussion guide writer to develop a fantastic document that so we can go show one of those films, have folks gathered around, and use some questions to help derive out of the audience? What's going on here?
What's going on, sort of stir it up, because sometimes you got to have a little bit of an icebreaker to get the conversation going. But once you start talking about stress, anxiety, mental health, particularly around our farm families who we adore, and we couldn't eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner and
That's
snack
right.
and do all the good things without, as well as all the other goods and things that we enjoy. So we want to make sure we're taking care of them. We've got more with David Buys coming out more. We're finding out more about MSU's mini-series on the farm, which is looking at the mental health of our farm families of Mississippi and beyond, and bringing to light this idea that we should all be aware of farm stress, be reaching out to our farm families, and that there's help and that there's hope, I think is also a good part of this, David.
Right.
And so I know the series just launched. It just launched, I think, Monday.
Yeah.
And then it's played again. You guys are planning on taking it on the road as well. Are you already getting feedback from people who are, saying wow or yes or all the things?
We've gotten several unsolicited bits of feedback. Of course, we ran it through experts in the field before we launched it to be sure that it resonated and it sat right. But that's been so rewarding since Monday night to get tweets and private messages via Twitter and Facebook and email saying, wow, had no idea that this was underway, and this is so meaningful. And yes, so we are getting that positive feedback.
Which I think is good. That goes to show that people are open to having a different dialogue. You talk about the farm stress, though. I know the mini-series is just a piece of the puzzle that the extension is doing to sort of help farmers or help farm families. What are some of the other, legs to that table of help, of mental health help?
Yeah, so I'm just super excited that, about 4 years ago, our extension director, Dr. Gary Jackson, mandated that all of our extension agents be trained in mental health first aid, it's exactly what the name sounds like. It is mental health. It's first aid to address mental health challenges, just like what you'd expect physical first aid. You know how to put a Band-Aid on a wound or stabilize a broken leg till you get to the emergency department. It's the same thing for mental health. In recognition, again, of the challenges that our farmers face, our director said, we need all of our agents, our ag agents included, to have this skill set and these tools. So that's a component. We're doing trainings. We work very closely with our Department of Psychology, clinical psychologists, try to understand the sort of clinical component of what's going on. We're much more public health education focused in my particular shop, but we build partnerships around campus and around the state. We work closely with DMH, with State Department of Health, with Farm Bureau here. We're working with Alcorn, and I can't say enough good things about them as partners to address these issues. So lots of things.
Lots of boots on the ground.
There
So
are.
oftentimes Mississippi gets bad rap, but it's like you guys don't, or we know, but that there's so many things going on the ground that's just not. They're too busy working to be tooting their own horn. But this is the chance you get to toot your own horn, as you have worked 18 months on this mini-series. You said you may get to take them on the road and then facilitate town hall kind of discussion. Where will that be taking place?
Yeah, so we're working with our extension agents and have conversations underway with other entities that we've not gotten any commitments, so I don't want to air possibilities that won't come to fruition. But there are other farm organizations and mental health organizations that are at least in the early stages of having expressed interest of us bringing the film to them. We do have on the schedule, so it's not a problem for me to say this, taking this to places like the Mississippi Psychological Association, to there's an event, a big conference in the Delta with primarily economists. So take the film there and show one of those segments, and then again facilitate that conversation, so that we don't just sort of do a data dump in people's head or in a viewer's head, but we also elicit from them, how did it sit? What did they learn? What can we do? What are the strengths that we already have in our communities? What are the gaps? Where can we fill in the gap? Who else needs to see this? Those are all the kinds of questions.
Well, I feel like that's a good question here, David, is like, who needs to see this, and then how do we get them to it? Because I feel like we've got, again, we've got farmers probably listening. We have farm family members listening, and it's, you care for those that you love as well. So maybe it's the first step, you watch it and get more insight into what's going on, and then, you sort of pass it along. Where can we find them?
So onthefarm.life, We created a website just for this film project, onthefarm.life. We'll give you some information again on the background of the film, the cast, if you will, and then you'll also be able to link to where you can stream the film on demand. It's hosted out on Vimeo via our MSU Films partners, but then it lives connected on that on
You
that
mentioned not just the farmers, but the farm workers, and I'm like,
right.
man, that's an opportunity there. If you've never thought about like taking, I know our farmers take care of their workers. It's not what I meant. It's just more of like maybe asking different questions or trying to be aware of different patterns of behavior, or instead of just assuming, that they're causing trouble, maybe there's something else that's going on, and those resources could help farmers help those individuals differently.
That's right. One of the first steps to developing empathy is just awareness and learning some of the sort of facts, if you will, behind the scenes. What drives this behavior that can frustrate us, but then again, the more we understand, the closer we get to having empathy. Now, we're not suggesting that farmers tolerate, or that farm owners or operators tolerate problematic behavior for their farm, but there may be a change of heart, change of attitude about helping them get the resources they need so they can be healthy and come back into the fold.
And break a cycle or sort of see things sort of differently. I think that's really cool. What's something new that you've learned, or what's something surprising that you learned by doing this project, David, about our farm families?
So I think what's really struck me is the power of film. I've never been a big TV person. I'm the most not up-to-date person on pop culture and film, and I never have been. So I don't think that I realized just how powerful that vehicle can be for connecting with people. So it's not so much a content answer as it is just the process and the value of film for storytelling and moving the needle in people's attitudes. And changing attitudes is the first step to changing behavior.
Will the extension utilize more documentaries going forward?
That's the plan. We have another series of these in the works. We've yet to nail down exactly who our cast will be and the angle and the stories, but we do have resources for another round of this.
Well, I think that's cool, and then it kind of lives on forever. I like that they're kind of bite-sized. 12 minutes isn't so long, and then I'm assuming you probably have farmers of different types of farming that can kind of connect with everyone else. That's when I go back to, it's like you have to meet folks where they are. Right. And first step is letting them know that they're just simply not alone, and that there is, it's okay. You can still be a strong man or woman, farmer, lady, person, whatever the right terminology is, and be able to raise your hand and say, I'm stressed to the max, or, things are rough. I just need some way to help me through it. And that's out there you're allowed that, right? You're allowed to be able to do that.
Yeah. So two follow-ups to that. One is you mentioned stress, and I think back to your question about what have my learnings been, the power of words and the way we frame things is so important. Farmers aren't going to talk about their mental health. They're not going to come to a mental health support group. But listening, paying attention to the words that people use, they can shared meaning, but use different words. And stress is a word that farmers will often use. That nobody's too proud to say, man, that was a stressful day. That's really hard. It hit me hard when the new numbers came out, or hit me hard. Stress, language like that, and learning how to listen for those challenges, the words that signal the challenge.
One thing I heard for you say, David, that I'll take away is not as forgetting that or thinking about the fact that our farmers oftentimes are isolated, and so checking in on them. Take them a meatloaf or a pound cake.
That's right.
Or just, hey, how you doing? Or opening up that conversation and just recognize, especially if they're during those harvest seasons, planting seasons, those different times. If you live in that area where you have a lot of farmers, you see them at the gas station, just remind them that there's a community around them that obviously appreciates what they do in terms of goods and services, but that them as people too, that you're there for them, can go a long way.
And so absolutely true, and I'm glad you picked that comment up as it relates to the farmer, but also remembering the whole farm family and the spouses of those farmers during harvest in particular. That can be a real dark time. They know that their spouses are doing what they've got to do in the field, but when they're gone 14, 16 hours a day for weeks at a time, that can be tough on the whole family.
It can. Well, I think this is a great topic to shine light on. I appreciate your time here, David. People can go and watch it. That's the first step to at least starting this conversation and then sharing it. I'll make sure that we share the link. You said
Please.
on the
farm.life, on the farm.life. Yeah, and reach out to me at david.buys@msstate.edu if you want to talk more about this project.
Well, you can find the link in the Good Things Facebook group. I will put that in during the break. But stick with us. We got more for you.